Welcome everyone. Hi, if you're one of the students in my class, please sign into the chat and type your question in for visiting artist Zeal Harris. We're going to start in just a moment. First of all, I want to thank you, Zeal, for being here today. Thank you so much for visiting my class and for participating in the Teaching and Socially Engaged Artists series. I'm going to read Zeal's biography and just talk to you a little bit about her work. Zeal Harris is a Los Angeles-based visual artist creating colorful urban vernacular narrative fine art. Her exhibitions include the California African American Museum in Los Angeles, Mesa Contemporary Arts Museum, Prizm Art Fair, the Satellite Art Fair, and the Caribbean Culture Center for the African Diaspora. Her art bibliography includes Art News, Pacifica Radio, the Huffington Post, Fabrik Magazine, Clocktower Radio, the LA Weekly, the Los Angeles Times, and the book Creative Souls, African American Artists in Greater Los Angeles. You can find more information about Zeal at her website, zealsart.com. And we have been looking at her work this week in my class. I just want to thank Zeal very much for being here today. She is somebody that I'm pleased to call a friend, and we have known each other for a while now and have been both very active in different social practice programs in Los Angeles. And she's somebody who I admire very much, and I'm really pleased that she's now a lecturer here at Cal State Fullerton in the art department. So welcome, and thank you so much for being here today, Zeal.
Hello, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. So should I go ahead and share my screen?
Go for it, yep.
All right, okay. Okay, so I'm starting my slideshow with this image of me because it's the most recent image I have of me that's decent. And actually there's a little tiny corner of a painting right there on the wall behind me that does belong to me, but otherwise this doesn't. So I hope no one gets confused. But that is something that I recently purchased that I love, and it's a history of I've been researching for that particular headpiece from Sierra Leone. This is a photo of me at the California African American Museum some time ago. Not gonna say how long ago, but definitely a few pounds ago. And this artwork is actually in the collection at the California African American Museum. And it's about a woman who led, some people consider her to be the first Pan-Africanist who advocated an end to the slave trade in Congo in the 1700s. And she had tens of thousands of followers, but she was put to death by for heresy for claiming to be the reincarnation of Saint Anthony. It was the Italian monks who were present in Congo who really pressed hard to eliminate her and put pressure on the politicians, which were the kings of Congo at the time, to get rid of her. So the first work that I'm going to show is Pantheon of Akatas, and typically we will see that artists generally start with old stuff and then work their way up to the new stuff. Well, I actually prefer to work kind of backwards from that. So I'm starting with new work and then going to go from there. So I actually finished this one this weekend, and that means that it may not be finished. I actually heard a famous artist, John Otterbridge, once say that if it comes back to the house, it's fair game, meaning like if the artwork gets exhibited somewhere or goes to a show and it didn't get sold, no one acquired it, then the artist can still keep playing with it and changing it if they want to. So what is happening here is that we see some figures, and some of this gets hard for me to describe, which is good. It's good for me because I talk too much and I'm too detailed most of the time. But what I'm working to do with my art is to make it so it's hard to describe, because I want to describe feelings and desires and questions and speculations. And so we have some ancestral mothers, and even though they represent, the figures are female and they represent different ages, and even like someone that looks like a fairy, they're still all ancestral mothers of African American culture. What is happening in the background is that there's a figure who is a religious figure, an orisha, or a deity or a spirit from the Voodoo religion in Benin. And Voodoo is the origin of voodoo. We say voodoo here in the United States, and in Haiti they say voodoo. And for them, it just means a religion that has a variety of different spirits or saints to worship. So from their point of view, they may see Catholicism as voodoo. And so this particular figure represents a creator figure. She's a Black African female who's considered to be the first person to bring about humanity through the twins that she's holding, which have different names throughout Latin America and Africa, and Ibejis, there's like different ways to pronounce it. So the twins are the divine twins from which all humanity descends. And her territory, her place where she exists is usually swamps and like lakes and rivers. So my ancestral mothers at this point of the narrative exist in a swamp, and they exist there not because they're just disciples of Nana Buruke, that's the way they say it in Brazil, but because they are people who have escaped from slavery, in my mind, and they live in the swamp. And there are communities that have existed over the past 500 years throughout the Black Atlantic, so that means the Americas, the Caribbean, and Africa, that did their best to run away from slavery or avoid it or avoid participating in it. And one of the most common places they had to go and dwell in order to escape that life was to live in swamps. So this painting is called Runaways because we have some men, some male figures who've run away from society, and they're being taken in by the ancestral mothers. So I tried to create this in such a way that it's in a sort of like mythological, speculative space, a magical space that's, you know, more complicated than linear time. Like it's not a specific time. So I'm going to move on from this one and go to the next slide. I'm going to talk less about the images because now you know a little bit of the background of where this little narrative is coming from. And it's just something I'm starting to explore. So this is a detail of the same painting. The painting is mixed media on fiberless paper. So it's like water-based media like tempera and watercolor and things that illustrators use, but on fiberless paper. It was 31 by 35 inches also. And I actually have it behind me, so maybe towards the end of this broadcast or whatever we're going to call this thing, webinar, Zoom meeting, whatever, I can actually show the real thing. So this is created with the same types of materials, but this one is on fabric instead of fiberless paper. And here it's the same theme. In this particular one, we have the women kind of hiding in the swamp. And you see that they're representing different kinds of things that look African and African American as far as the symbols, the symbology, because the ancestral mothers would have come from many places in Africa and would be Pan-African in that sense, that they're mixing and blending different traditions and trying to come up with something new to survive here in America. Same thing is happening here. They're getting to know each other in their environment. I'm getting to know them as well. This one is called The Ship. And basically what I imagined is that, well, okay, I read historically that, you know, some ships may have crashed, for example, like slave ships. And then what would have happened to the people? And so in this sense, I created a cube to symbolize kind of like a slave ship. And what would happen to the survivors? And so these women are in a primordial sea, and they know that there's going to be a crash, and they know that there's going to be, they have two of them have a premonition that something is about to happen. So this one's called The Vision. And then what they discover is that cyborgs fall from the cube. If there are any Star Trek fans here in the audience, then you know that the Borg had a cube ship. So I imagine the cube to be like the slave ships of Europe. And what we have is these victims of the crash. And so ancestral mothers are pulling them out of the wreckage through the swamp. And I had visited a cenote in Tulum, Mexico. And so, I mean, you can't possibly have a cenote in a swamp, but I didn't care. It's a painting. So I put my women in a cenote, which is like an underground lagoon type of cave. And we're gonna have one survivor. So this one is called Revival. And for the other victims who they couldn't save, this is a funeral for them. And it's kind of like got to have a Dogon symbology, and the Dogon are a group of people who live in Mali, an ethnic group in Mali. And the women are kind of in Star Trek inspired uniforms. And then here, one of the women is sharing information. You can see that she's kind of teaching. And so, you know, the women tell each other about their past and their presence and the future and their dreams. And the way that they find out about the future is not just by dreams, but by divining. So there are different methods of fortune telling that different African traditions have. I won't go, there's a lot that I can talk about here, but I'm gonna not go into it too much. But this area in here with the spaceship flying into it is part of her vision of the future or the past. So they're folded, they're not linear, it's not linear time. And this is what the exhibit looked like installed. So you can get a sense of the scale and what it would be like to actually see it in a gallery with more natural color than what you're seeing on my screen. A different angle. So now I'm gonna move into a different series, and it's called I Be Living Black Love. And this one I've also started concurrently to the other one. So this one is more about everyday life and like moments, like, you know, love, dating, relationships, sexuality. And the title comes from a verse that Remy Ma had in a freestyle that I heard her rapping on TV, I mean on YouTube, like maybe 3 years ago or something. And I just really liked the line. So the whole series is gonna take that title, but this is the one that is actually called, of the artwork, this one's actually called I Be Living Black Love. So I imagine these to be illustrations that would go towards some kind of book that would be marketed towards adults. And then this is what some of those look like installed. So I imagine them that, you know, for my book, my idea is that there would be 1 pages or 2 pages for each story or moment that I'm illustrating. These actually are on Fabrik, but the one that you see here is actually on paper. That's the original. Here's another. And this is a little story that a friend told me about how her friend, who was Argentinian, had adopted a Haitian girl. He and his wife had adopted a Haitian girl, and this is set in Miami. And they grounded her for something. And then they noticed that they had charges on their credit card for a night that she was grounded. So they were questioning each other about it, like, who did you go out with? Who did you go out with? And then they were like, well, let's ask our daughter. So she was grounded, but she apparently invited 2 boys over, bought them sushi, and paid for their Ubers. And this is a sketch that is kind of commemorates my trip to Haiti in 2016 for an art event called the Ghetto Biennale. And so I actually stayed at this place called, I mean, I didn't stay there. I was there all the time because this group and this place hosted the event, and they're called Artistes Resistance. And so it's kind of in this neighborhood where a lot of trucks and vehicles come to do repairs on their cars. So whatever materials they discard, the artists that live at Artistes Resistance, which means artist resistance in like Creole, Haitian Creole language, they take the parts of the cars and they incorporate them into their artwork, particularly tires, and they cut them up and make artwork out of them. So I wanted to capture the vibrancy of my experience in Haiti. And this is a video of the work. I'm gonna actually slow it down. I actually shot this video, and my cell phone actually produces more stable video than the fancy camera I was using here. But again, you can kind of like see that a bit of the detail on the artwork. I'll try to go through it more quickly because we don't have a lot of time here. I'll just go from artwork to artwork. So this is what I'm doing instead of showing you detailed shots. And also the thing about taking a still photo, the thing about taking a still photo, I don't know what just happened. Let's see, I think it went forward by accident. it did. The thing about showing work that's, taking photos of work that's shiny is a lot of stuff has to be done to it in order to not capture the glare when you take a photograph of it. This one is called, I know I showed this before, but I didn't say the title, and it takes its name from a song also. So it's called Call My Girls and Put Them All on a Spaceship, and that's after a Beyonce verse from one of her songs. I hadn't intended to show them that way, but the gallerist liked them so much, she asked me if I would exhibit them, and I said, okay. And so, yeah. I see people putting questions on the chat, but I'll take a look when I'm finished. This is a show that I curated, and so because everything I make is flat, I really appreciate when I'm in exhibits with people who do all kinds of other work. So I actually curated this show myself, and it was called Some Blackity Black Stuff. So that's my artwork here. And I'll show a closer image of it in a moment. And this one is mine as well. And I had some other work too, but you know, since I curated the show, I mean, yeah, I could have put my work in the very front, but I actually put it towards the back out of graciousness. So that's me with the artwork. It's called Wild Seed Transatlantic, and it is basically an artwork that summarizes through like a visual essay, fine art collage, the prologue of one of my favorite novels by Octavia Butler, who's a Black science fiction writer. And I'm not going to go into so much of what it's about, except that there's a warlock who takes on different bodies of different people, and he exists since ancient Nubian times in Africa. And Nubia was a place that rivaled, or was where ancient Egypt got a lot of the stuff that made it become one of the greatest, you know, so they say, greatest civilizations in the world. And he has existed for 3,000 years, and he comes to seduce a woman in the 1700s who lives in Nigeria. And what he does is he collects people from around the world who have special gifts and talents, and he's into a breeding project to try to create his vision of like something like a superhuman being. And so that's his thing. That's like what he's into. So he comes to ask her to be his wife so that he can try and have kids with her, because he knows that she has special powers. She's a shapeshifter. She can change into different kinds of animals. She is a healer, like an extraordinary healer. And none of her children have been able to have the same level of talent that she has. Like they basically have none. And so she keeps outliving all her children. So he seduces her with this idea that he's going to, you know, give her children that won't outlive her. So he has a ship, and he has some of his people with special talents on the ship. If you could see this a little closer, you would see that they represent people and cultures from around the world, and some of them are mixed up. And this is also a representation of a slave ship, but they also represent the people that he has taken from different places and not allowed to leave as he does his breeding experiment. So it's an analogy for the slave trade itself, the transatlantic African slave trade. This is another image of art that was in the exhibit. So another series that I have is Home Remedies for Driving While Black. And over the time of me making artwork, which has been more than 15 years, I've done work that has to do with police violence. And so I started to actually sit down and try to commit to making a series about it. But it actually just started with me wanting to do 4 artworks about people that I personally knew who were killed by police. And but then I realized that I had other stuff that dealt with the theme of police, and I didn't think of ever making a series. So then I put it all together and then started to commit to making a series. It's the first time that I actually sat and really focused on doing a theme for a long time. So this was done in 2017, and that summer was full of like a lot of police violence. It was Sandra Bland. It's hard to remember the names. There were so many, you know, Freddie Payne, Gray. There was this is a woman who was a victim. I forgot her name. This woman was killed by police. Her child was there with her. The piece is kind of named after her, the artwork, because she was initially pulled over for having a cardboard license plate that said "Free Traveler," and that's where it all began, because she had "Free Traveler," and so this title is Liturgical Language of a Free Traveler. So we see Sandra Bland, we see clashes with police, but mixed in between, there's this fire and water play that's happening. Play isn't really the best word, but I wanted to show the joy of like teenagers playing in water, and then how like fire was another theme of the summer. Also, Trump had just been elected, and, you know, I also wanted to, you know, make some political statements. So you see Obama and lots of different things happening, including magical recipes to help with this, different kinds of problems that were related to police violence, like protection or bringing people back to life and things like that. This one's called Women in White Meet at the Wall, and a Chicano curator I know asked me, could I make something that brought together the concerns of Ferguson at the time, as well as corruption, you know, problems in Mexico with the 43 students that went missing in Mexico. I forgot the name of the place at the moment. And so what I decided to do was show women in a kind of ritual space, a ritual mythological space from the Americas, and how they protest corruption and police violence and state violence. And so they're all wearing white, and they're carrying flowers, and they look as if they're in a parade. The backdrop is a Rajasthani genre painting from like India, like, you know, India from like 300-400 years ago. And then again, these are some more police violence themes, and I wanted to focus on like the real people who, and the impact of police violence on everyday life and culture and relationships, intimate relationships. So here's a woman who's lost a partner. And they also have like these prescriptions, like magical formulas for help. So you see like herbs and like spells. And this one has English and Haitian Creole because my subject is Haitian. This one's called Night Stealth, and it's a couple, and the woman doesn't want the man to leave because his tags are expired on his car, and she doesn't want the potential for him to get pulled over and having interaction with cops in the night. And this one is about how this light-skinned mother of a Black child, essentially, a Blacker child, is telling her that, you know, how to explain getting out of problems with the police. And the girl is thinking, you know, that works for you, Mom, because you're light skinned, and and I'm not. You're light skinned with straight hair. And the father is looking over, who's also dark skinned. And this one is about a friend of mine who is having immigration problems. She's African, and she'd been here for 17 years. But her company made a mistake in how they published the job, and they were supposed to be sponsoring her to get citizenship. But what happened is they made a mistake in how things went. And she spent her life savings on the attorney and everything, but nothing could be done to save it. So her license happened to expire at the same time. And then I haven't really seen her since then, because she had to find a place to live and a way to make a living, because she wasn't ready to try to go back to Nigeria. So it's not her real name, but it's like a Facebook post, and I say, rolling with my girl Ngozi on PCH. Her job leases a Cooper for her. She's balling Cali style, damn. And that was 3 months before. Her job was paying for everything, like her nice car, her nice apartment. She had the best clothes, like everything. And she went to having nothing in just like 3 months. So she was afraid of being pulled over by police and being deported. And that's why this goes into the series, Home Remedies for Driving While Black also. This one is about church people trying to do magic in the church to stop police violence. This one is about me being pulled over once while I was with a boyfriend, and like what the cops did and said and what I was thinking and what I was feeling. And it also has these, like, again, prescriptions for magical formulas to like safeguard one while traveling. This one is about a friend of mine from college who was killed by police. He was my second friend to be killed by police. And so what it does is it talks about knowing him. It has poetry in it and songs, memories. It also details the event and the articles that were written about what happened. But this was before social media, so there aren't a lot of images of him. And so, yeah, I actually made more than one of these because I was testing it out, and I sent one to his mother, and she loved it. That's me standing in front of it installed. This one is actually really large. It's like as big as the other one you just saw. It's like at least 10 feet wide. It's several different pieces, and it tells the story of the Dominican American who saw Walter Scott being shot in the park in North Carolina. No, it was at South Carolina. And it just talks about how the Black American father, when he met the Dominican hero, he said, you know, one son for another, like I just got a new son from the Dominican. And I thought, you know, listening to the story, how this Black Dominican had to like think about what he was doing and like bringing forth this video that he did not have to, but I consider him a hero and that he did the right thing. And, you know, this work is about, it's about being Black in the diaspora and having certain kinds of shared experiences and identity, and again, a spirit of Pan-Africanism. This one is about a neighbor who was killed by police. He was actually killed by an Asian man, an Asian male policeman, but I made him a Latina woman. I don't remember why, but I thought it would complicate the story because he actually was a sex offender. And yeah, he was a neighbor. He lived in the same apartment complex that I lived in. And so one day, I didn't know that, but one day I came home and the other women were talking about it and how they didn't think he should be living there. And, you know, so this is a reflection on like how different women felt about him living in the building, like my neighbors, and then how we all had mixed feelings about like what happened to him. He didn't deserve to be killed. The police killed him because they thought he had a gun, but he didn't. He only had potting soil in his car, which he was going to come back and bring to plant the flowers in our garden at our building. This was my first friend to be killed by police. His name was Prince Jones, and he was a stellar, remarkable, deep, and wonderful person. And the book by Ta-Nehisi Coates that got him a MacArthur grant was also dedicated to the same friend. We all went to the same school, which is Howard University, same school that Kamala Harris went to, as well as Black Panther. And these are people that I knew as well. And this one is about Eric Garner. This was one of the first ones that I did where I was thinking this would be a series. And it shows students, like lay-in protesters. And it's Radio Raheem, and Radio Raheem's death in Do the Right Thing, which is my favorite movie, was very similar to how Eric Garner died. And so I just kind of was astounded at the similarity across 30 years that the pattern is still happening. These are spirit figures pouring libations. And this is a symbol of the cemetery, the guardian of life and death from Haitian voodoo. This is about, this is when I went to Hurricane Katrina, to New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina, and I made a friend there, and she was just talking about a friend of hers. She took me to her FEMA trailer and had me meet her family and all kinds of stuff. And I told her I wanted to go visit a specific prison in the area, and she said it was too far away, I wasn't gonna have time. but she talked about a cousin and how he escaped from the prison, and he was like swimming through the swamp, and he was so afraid of the swamp that when the cops found him, he was screaming as they were beating him, "Take me back, take me back." This one's called Our Brother, Our Son. It's oil on wood panel, 14 by 60 inches. And up here, there are actually people in jail, and they're packed in, and they're all different races, but mostly Black and brown. And this is her cousin, and those are the police, and you see there's a Black one as well. And to show the passage of time, it's like we see the character, the same exact character repeated in different places in the swamp. And the family, if you can see it closer, I wish I had a detailed shot in here, but you'll see me right there at the time, sitting with the family, and they all have a tear in their eye as they're smiling, and they're holding tissues. I don't think I have that much more time. I want to leave time for questions, so I'm just going to go through some images really quickly. So this is some installation of some of my paintings at a gallery, a different gallery. This was a series about a friend's trip to Beirut. And the text is in Arabic. I got help with putting the text in Arabic. So I'm not going to explain these too much. I'm just going to show the images. Yeah, I was younger. So my friend basically thought there was a certain way you had to be Muslim and to blend in. And she found out that, at least in Beirut, everything that she thought needed to be turned upside down. So she met all these amazing women there who, like, you know, kind of showed her the ropes and helped her blend in better. And some of them were Black in Lebanon. And this one's a princess. We traveled all over the world. And then here, my friend blends into the background instead of sticking out like a sore thumb or being an outsider like she was at the beginning. I did 4 paintings inspired by an Indian playwright's play. And this one is basically, it's too much to explain, but it's basically about how Black people in the United States are still part of the imperial empire and how we can be imperialist as well. This one is about a friend's trip to Mexico. She was lesbian, but she ended up sleeping with a man while she was there. And it was kind of funny. She went to go visit her sister, who had been there for like a year already, 2 years, and nobody had heard from her. That's the sister. This is one of my favorite paintings. It's not with that series, but like people really love this particular painting. It's one of my first paintings, actually. It's oil on board. I don't know what that sound was just now. And that's it. I don't think I have more time to show you the rest. So I'm gonna stop the share right there. And wow.
Questions for you. Let's see. Can I read some questions from the group? Let's see. Got a lot of them. Let's see. From Chris Lanfar. Why did you want to become an artist? What did you know, or when did you know that you wanted to become an artist?
I'm sorry, there's like some strange sound that just started happening in the background. I think it's my smoke detector.
Uh-oh.
Well, I guess when I was 14, I would say that is when I kind of came like a real artist, sort of. And that's because I got hired to draw portraits and caricatures for the amusement park in my area, which was Busch Gardens. Can you hear that?
Yeah, I can.
I want to go take it off the wall. I think it needs a new battery or something. Or it doesn't like the
smoky everywhere right now. It's probably detecting
that's
everything.
What it is.
I'm sure that's what it is. Yeah. We're not even supposed to be breathing right now. It's so smoky outside.
Right? I was like, I know it doesn't like the way my chicken smells. My chicken's in the crock pot.
My dad is the chicken.
Okay, I need to stop it just for a second. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna bring. You can see the painting in the background a little bit, and so let me just take the thing out of the wall. Oh, it's not that one. It is the other one, which I don't know where it is right now.
Oh no.
It's the methane one, I think. Yeah, it's the methane one. The one that's supposed to detect gas.
Nice.
Okay,
That's
sorry
great.
about that. I don't know if it's still gonna make noise because if I unplug it, it beeps constantly unless it
Oh,
has
no.
pressure being plugged in. Okay, okay, hold on.
Well, you know we're live if this is happening, right?
I know.
Oh my gosh, that's scary that we're breathing all that stuff right now. We can't do anything about it. Oh my God.
It's still making noise even when I hold it down.
So,
And it's not battery operated.
huh.
So I don't even know how it turns on and off. I am so sorry. This was so unexpected. Okay, let's try again. Maybe I turned it off.
Here's a good question. Let's see. What tips can you offer for teaching art to kids that feel like they can't draw whatsoever?
Everybody can draw. There's an African proverb that says something like, if you can talk, you can sing. If you can walk, you can dance. So I feel like if you can pick up a pencil or if you can do something with your hands, you can make art. There's some people who make it with their feet. So it's just a matter of like, you know, some people do some things better than others, but everybody can do most things. So some people get better at things that they don't think they can do well just because they do it often or they have passion for it. So, you know, I would say that one doesn't have to focus on being able to draw in order to make art either. There are plenty of other ways to make art that don't have anything to do with drawing. So
That's a beautiful philosophy.
Yeah.
I like that philosophy a lot. Do you have like a favorite lesson that kind of illustrates that attitude or your approach? I don't know. I mean, Roland asked for a favorite, or Connor asked for a favorite lesson plan, but I know it's more or less just an actual approach that you have to being in the classroom.
Well, there's a lot of people say, I can only draw stick figures, or I can't even draw stick figures. And there's a book that I have called The Magical Life of Long Tack Sam. And it's written by a woman who's a filmmaker who does this exploration of like her ancestry. And a lot of it is done with stick figures. And so it's mixed because she draws stick figures and like does the handwriting for the cartoons, but she also has a couple of artists who do some of the other stuff, and then she incorporates photographs, and then she draws text. So I like have people do stick figure comics that tell a story, and we get to see how effective it can be to just tell a story with stick figures and how artistic it can be and how entertaining.
That's awesome. That's a really good, we're going to be coming up to doing like comic book notes. So I'll use that as an example. I haven't seen that book before. That's awesome. Let's see. Here's another one from Kimberly Vo. Is there a subject that gets difficult to teach children because of the context? Good one.
Yeah, I would say the only thing that's difficult is when kids make offensive artwork. That is something that's more difficult than any particular content that's difficult. Kids already come with difficult content from their actual lives that they're often processing, holding on to. They don't know what to do with it, you know. So those are the issues that are more difficult than you presenting a hard subject. The only reason that a subject can get difficult is because of how different parents might react to it for political reasons or personal reasons, you know? And that's what I'll say on that.
That is so true. That is so true, because kids talk about everything on the playground. And so they try out everything that they're hearing, you know, at home talked about in their families, and they try it out on the playground. And you do hear some incredibly controversial stuff on the playground. And I think when they come to class and want to discuss it, it's an opportunity for the teacher to really hear a variety of opinions and also present a maybe more fair and balanced view than oftentimes their parents are even presenting, you know, and that is when it gets hard, is when a parent maybe politically disagrees with the teacher. But I still think that kids are going to have those conversations regardless of whether the adults in their lives are willing to admit that. It's just part of growing up, is that you're trying to figure out what your opinion is about certain things that are happening in the world.
Yeah, I'd like to look at the chat also. Let's see.
Yeah. I like, what is one thing that inspires you as an artist? That's a good question.
I talked about a lot of things that inspire me, I think. Let me see.
Yeah.
There's quite a bit. I'm like scared to let go of this methane thing I'm holding. I'm down to what is the most important subject in your opinion? How do you start the creative process? Create stories, come up with these stories. I like to answer that one. Let's see. Hello,
Sure.
The same one as twice. Favorite way to make art. Thank you for all the compliments I see in there. As a person of color, do you feel a pressure to capture and represent your history and culture as it is? Unfortunately, not as present in the art world. I would like to answer that one or talk about it. Do you ever experience writer's block? But for artists, that's a good one. What inspires you to tell these stories in your artwork? Yes, new battery. Oh, so thank you, Christopher. That's all I need is a new battery, apparently. Okay. Okay. How do I come up with the stories? I hear them from other people around me, and I experience things and I tell stories to people. So for most of the time that I'm using stories, the stories have already been told to me, and I thought they were good stories because they were full of imagery and they had something profound to say. They produced conversation in a certain way that I felt like I hadn't heard it or it was very unique. Some of them are stories that I tell to other people, and then I saw how they responded, and I'm like, maybe that'll make a good artwork because it burns in the imagery burns in my head in a certain way. And then some of them are historical stories that I just feel need to be told. And then there are times when I just make stuff up. So that's the answer to that. As a person of color, do I feel a pressure to capture and represent my history? I don't feel a pressure. I feel a burning desire. There's a difference. So I kind of feel that this is my act of service, my way of giving back to humanity. Other people have kids, I make art. Oh, you muted yourself.
I was just gonna say it's the same thing. Your art is I mean, they are your children, right? The objects you make, and they're your creations.
Right, and you don't know how they're gonna turn out. Like yeah, let's make this thing, but you have no idea what it's gonna be like when you're finished. And it hurts to make it.
Oh my God, it's more alike than I even know. That's for sure.
I really feel like I'm giving like some kind of like emotional birth when I make a painting. Like sometimes it's just so hard. I'm like, okay, maybe I need to find a different way to do this because this literally feels like I'm pushing a baby out.
Well, you know what's interesting is when people first take an art class, they're so nervous about it feeling bad when they're making a drawing or painting or whatever it is. And you're like, yeah, that's just the way it feels for a long time. And then you have to pass through that a little bit. There's like you just have to get through it. But it is tough the whole way through a lot of times. And then at the end, you feel really good about it. But yeah, and even then sometimes you don't, but it's the process, that you have to get relaxed with that,
Yeah, I guess it's the same as lifting weights too. I mean, that doesn't really feel that good. Also, some people say it's good pain, but they like the results.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Let's see. How do I start the creative process? It just varies from having real life conversations to research. Sometimes it's a topic and I want to specifically address a topic or topics. And I'm like, what could I do? What could I create to address the topic? And let's see, what else? Did you see something else in there you think I should answer, Mary Anna?
What's your favorite way to make art, or could you show us your fabric that you had pulled out? I know you were thinking about showing some actual artwork. We've got a few minutes left. Like, it'd be kind of neat.
Yeah,
Can you let go?
Let me see. Okay. Okay, so here's one of the fabric works.
Because I think it's so important to see, because the shininess in the reproductions, the reason it is shiny is because it's this fluid material that takes the paint, or the material changes the way that the paint looks. Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's been folded, so it has like a wrinkle in the middle. Here's another.
I love this one. Yeah, so beautiful. It's awesome because of all the shoes. I love the shoes.
This one is also not part of any series. It's a one-off. This is like, I liked a photo that was viral on Facebook and I painted it.
It's awesome.
And I'll just show one more. This one is about a friend, a white friend, who had a police violence incident that changed her life. And then she had to explain, she actually went to jail. She went to a prison that she called the secret prison, where she couldn't contact her family for a week. And she saw people coming in booked up. And she said, in her exact words, this was the type of jail where the police put people that they fucked up really badly. And so she saw people coming in who had almost nothing, and she felt really bad for her privilege. Even though she had been beaten too, she saw that their situations were worse because they didn't have money, they didn't know the system, like all kinds of things. She spent $20,000 on an attorney to try to represent her, but she ended up dropping her case for the same reason that like one of my friends didn't press a case against the Tulsa police, because it's like you have to be the perfect victim to win. And she felt, even as a privileged, wealthy white woman who had a police incident in front of the restaurant that she owned in Miami, that she wasn't going to win. So she dropped the case and lost them and the 20,000. And so you see at the bottom of that one that she's talking to a black man. Well, you don't see them talking, but you see them face to face. And so she had to explain at like a job interview why she had a police record to her supervisor, this man who would potentially be her supervisor, as she was trying to get a teaching job, why she had a police record.
Yeah, it's so tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you really confront, one of the things I really like about your work is that you tell these very personal individual stories. It's not generalities about police brutality or violence or even experiences. They're very specific about people that you've talked to, people that you know, and the running narrative of your own life that you're recording all of the stories as you go, I think is really amazing, because you have so much, you're very prolific, you've made a lot of work over the years. And the stories are, have been ongoing. Like what year did the Stories of Driving While Black come out, that series in particular?
Well, some of the artwork that I ended up putting in with that was created even 10 years before. Like one incident was about Sean Bell. He was a man who was killed in New York. He was a mistaken identity case. He was shot like 40 or 50 times by the NYPD the night before his wedding. And so in that particular painting, I show his fiance grieving, dressed in wedding clothes, and it's a funeral at the same time, which is actually what the family did. So I put that with the Home Remedies for Driving While Black series. And so, but the bulk of it was done between like 2016 and 17. And even though stuff is still going on, it's like I've already done it. It was really a difficult place to sit and make art from. And I didn't want to become known for the woman who just makes art about police violence. So I had to stop. I had to stop for my own spirit as well.
So it seems like in your newer work that you're talking about almost these fantasy situations, talk about things being non-linear, and possibly, do you think that that's possibly because it is too hard to sit in those places where you're revisiting trauma? And it seems like maybe it's also, I'm just responding to the color and the lushness of the new work, in particular the piece that's right behind you. I'm looking at it behind your head.
Well, that one has trauma in it too, but it's not, I don't know how to describe it. It's not as direct. It's more symbolic, and maybe not as close in time. That might have something to do with it too, because like as I would be making this artwork, sometimes the news articles would be pounding me on the TV at the same time. You know, people are talking about it, and so yeah, again, it's like every time that it gets discussed, every time I see something on the news, it's like it does feel like another trauma. Like I'm reliving it every moment, making it every brushstroke, every color. It's like I'm making artwork about something really, really, really bad and really hurtful, you know, and I'm feeling it too. So, yeah.
Well, we are at the end of our time, but I want to thank you for talking to us today and for being patient through the beeping and all of the disruption. We're both new to the webinar format, but I really appreciate you coming to visit my class, and you know, I just so appreciate you, and I want to thank you for sharing with us. And one student asked, and I'm just very quickly, we looked at a painting and that had a mother, a daughter, or three generations, a grandmother sort of stacked up, and it was from I think the Fish series, and I'm getting the titles wrong because I don't remember.
Oh.
But if you can you just explain that a little bit, and then I'll ask you to, then we can sign off.
Yes. Actually took it out of the slideshow because it was in here, but I didn't have really time to go over it anyway. I don't really like to talk about that work.
Okay, if it's too complicated, that's fine. Well, you know what I want to do?
No, I will talk about it, but I don't want to talk about it a lot because that one is definitely, it's close to home, and it really is revisiting real trauma that happened to, you know, me and my family, and it was growing up with domestic violence happening in my household. And so that's what that particular artwork is about. And so, you know, you see the three different generations of women stacked up because each is trying to figure out how to respond, support, and process the feelings around the one male in the house who is the person who's doing the beating. Mm-hmm. And all the other females are trying to stop it from happening, the three generations. So that would be me, my sister, my grandmother, you know, and everyone had a different way of going about it, you know, and responding to the incident, you know. So what's happening is that one of the children is, I can't remember if it was me or my sister, is helping my mom put on makeup to cover up the bruises. And I did have to do that at certain times. So, you know, so yeah, I get really emotional. It's like really tender place to talk from. Yeah. But the work is really powerful because of that, and it's not something you usually see in art.
Yeah, it is very powerful. I'll share with you some of the things that the students wrote about it, and it was a very powerful piece for the. And I just want to thank you for that we were able to learn from it, and that you made it and shared it with us. Thank you so much for being here today. And thank you everybody for attending. I appreciate it. Have a wonderful weekend.
I did want to respond to one more question. I don't know.
Sure.
And that was, do you ever get writer's block? Katrina says, do you ever experience like writer's block, but for artists? And it's almost like every time that you go to a blank surface, it's like writers, it's like, ah! It's like, am I going to be able to do this? Like, you know, did I lose it? Is it still there? So that's one thing. And then there are times that I just go stretches without working directly on work. Like I might just be researching stuff for living life, you know? So in a sense that can like function as kind of like a writer's block. Like, oh, I need more information, or I need more more experiences in order for this stuff to happen so that it can go into the making of the work. So yeah, I'd rather leave off on that note.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Zeal.
Okay, thank you. Bye. Bye. I actually wanted to look at more of the chat. I don't know how I can. I think I'm just gonna
I'll let you hang out.
Look at the comments on the chat. All right, thanks.